Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegrand, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, Dan and David recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Blue Jays from Toronto. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. I am Dan Thompson. With me today is David Kufis. We almost never do it this order. I think that's why I said the Blue Jays of Toronto, because I'm just not used to saying the first thing first. David is going to communicate mostly just through grunts and nods and sounders today. His voice is not quite what we would like it to be, so don't get him too worked up. So I'm just going to start with this, David.
Please attempt to be a gentleman.
We don't want you to burst a lung or something like that.
I will try my best. But
Man.
It's not good. It's not good, folks. I'm sorry. I tried. I was playing music this morning at church, and I got through about the second song in practice, and I said, well, that's all she wrote for me, I think.
So it's kind of like a solo show, I guess, but David will have eye contact with me occasionally to kind of tell me what to say. So it's kind of like David's hand is up my back, like it's kind of a puppet. So I may even occasionally say things like, I think what David would probably say to me in this spot. So this will be good. So again, David, use the sounders to communicate. It's kind of like in The Martian when, all he's got is that initial alphabet where he's got like a camera in the middle. I don't even know what it's called, but that's how we're going to have to communicate.
Ogres are like onions.
It's like you're there adding all the value you normally add. A couple things we have to talk about here, team notes wise. A lot of movement on the pitching staff, really. So Danny Coulomb, he pitched in a rehab game on Friday, and he's been activated at the same time that Zebby Matthews actually heads to the injured list with a shoulder strain. It seems that Simeon Woods Richardson is going to be coming to the MLB to take Zebby's spot. Aaron Gleeman was tweeting about how basically SWR was scratched from his start in St. Paul, so that would seem to point to him coming up. I would assume then we will see somebody get sent down at some point because they've also called Travis Adams up. I don't believe Travis Adams actually even pitched in this series, so we're still kind of waiting for his debut out of the bullpen. So some movement on that pitching staff. We will talk more about kind of what that means in some of the segments. In any case, the Blue Jays do win 2 of the 3 here. These teams now have identical 35-30 records on the season. Blue Jays came in as a good team. We're going to see another good team come to Target Field next in the Rangers. But for now, David, I think if it's okay with you, you can just, nod if you'd like me to move on to the series recap.
Series recap.
See, there we go. Game 1, Blue Jays win this one 6-4. A competitive game, though. Twins actually have a 3-0 lead early. In the bottom of the first, Larnach hits a solo home run to make it 1-0. They get a couple more in the bottom of the second on a Clemens RBI ground out and then a Vasquez RBI double. So it's 3-0. But then the Blue Jays chipped away here. They got a couple runs on Addison Barger's 2-run home run in the fourth. Another 2 on Bo Bichette's RBI single in the fifth. And so all of a sudden, it's 4-3 Jays with just 2 swings of the bat. Top of the sixth, George Springer adds a solo shot for another run. So it's 5-3. And then in the top of the eighth, Kirk, I wanted to say Cameron Kirk, but that's clearly not the Kirk that he is. Hits an RBI single to score another at 6-3. Twins have some chances, but not that many. Bottom of the eighth was kind of their best one here. They get runners on the corners with nobody out. But then Jeffers is called out on a strike that was a bad pitch. That showed up on the ump scorecard. It was, I want to say that the ump had like 89% accuracy. He was not very good. Jeffers gets tossed, somewhat understandably.
His first toss of his career. And I always have a little bit more grace or understanding towards catchers getting upset with calls because they're back there. They know what balls and strikes look like all game. And so if he's getting called out and Jeffers is willing to get as upset as he did, clearly that ball was egregious.
Well, I will say this, though. Jeffers was pinch hitting. So he hadn't been back there the whole game, but I assume he was talking to Christian Vasquez.
In general, Dan, It doesn't have to be like just that particular. I'm not operating at 100%, okay?
Quite all right. I just wanted to be clear.
60% of the time, it works every time.
See, we don't even use that. We're going to get some good deep cut sounders today. That's my hope. There is a moment also in the bottom eighth. We'll come back a little bit later here where Cody Clemens bats as a lefty. I'm gonna save my thoughts on that. In any case, the Twins only do get the one run at the bottom of the eighth. Lewis does hit an RBI single. He had a great game, 3 hits in this game. And then in the bottom of the ninth, Buxton does walk with 2 outs, but then Larnach strikes out, completing a strikeout of the side for Blue Jays closer Jeff Hoffman. Then we get into game 2. The Blue Jays win this one 5-4. This was another one the Twins could have had. Iron Man Chris Paddock goes 6 innings for this team. 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. That man's ERA is down to 3.53 from starting the year something in the stratosphere. He has really been quite a revelation here for this rotation, making the Twins brass look pretty dang smart. Paddock does get into trouble in the first. He allows a couple hits and a walk that spots the Jays a 1-0 lead, and then he gives up a solo shot to Tyler Heineman in the second to put them up 2-0. Twins are able to tie it in the bottom of the fourth. They get singles from Jeffers and Correa. Wallner walks. France has an RBI hit by pitch and a Royce Lewis walk. Lots of runs scored in this series by not hitting the ball out of the infield here for the Twins. So it's a 2-2 game, 1 out, bases loaded. Clemens at bat. He hits a ball to third baseman Tyler Heineman, who throws home for the force and then gets Clemens at first. One of those totally unceremonious, all you should need to do is hit the ball into play. But that's kind of heartbreaking. Castro's on deck, who's been red hot lately. Would have been great to see him get a chance there. But in the end, the Twins aren't able to do anything more than tie it. Now, at the bottom of the 6th, they do actually take the lead with a Matt Wallner solo home run. So it's 3-2. But then top of the 8th, which is a moment we'll talk about a little bit later, Jax gives up the lead. And so then it's 4-3 Jays. They add another one in the 9th off of Duran. We will talk about that as well. So it's 5-3. And that was crucial because in the bottom of the 9th, Cody Clemens led off the inning with a solo home run to right, but the Twins do nothing further, and so they fall in a close game 5-4. Then we go on to game 3 here, and the Twins win this one 6-3. Just a game of walks we will talk about a little bit later too, but the Blue Jays issued 8, which basically meant that the Twins had constant base traffic because in addition to the 8 walks, Twins had 12 hits. They did strike out 7 times, but only to score the 6 is kind of remarkable, actually. It was a much more one-sided game than this looks. Case in point is the bottom of the 1st. Walks to Buxton and Wallner put runners on with 1 out. Nothing comes of that particular moment, but again, it was just the Twins were really off to the races after that. Ironically, the Blue Jays actually took an early 3-2 lead in this. They had their runs sandwiched around the Twins' first 2, which the Twins got in the bottom of the 2nd on an RBI ground up by Vasquez and a sac fly by Larnach with the bases loaded each of those. Bottom of the 4th, Twins retake the lead for good in a bit of an unlikely fashion. I can't say that I had this on my bingo card of getting the back-to-back home runs from Brooks Lee and then from Christian Vasquez.
He's got a back problem.
I was going to actually play this one.
My back!
But maybe that's the Carlos Correa sounder, too, after all that stuff with the dirt. You know, Carlos is... I will say this about that. I appreciate that he's taking his long-term health into account, but you don't get away with this if you don't have a $200 million contract. I just can't imagine the Twins, I can't even say Royce Lewis being allowed to do that or somebody else like that.
I want to build a championship culture.
Right. So you build the championship culture from the dugout, right? That's what you do. Kind of whispering to the guys as they walk by you. Bottom of the 5th, the Twins had 2 runs on an RBI double by France, and then soon after an RBI walk by Buxton. You can see the trend here. So it's 6-3. Bottom of the 6th could have had a lot more with the bases loaded. Correa was thrown out at home. I think it was probably the right call to send him there. David's shaking his head. He disagrees. Oh, hold on. I imagine what he's going to say is because the Blue Jays had been walking so many guys, you don't give them any free opportunities for outs. Nodding. No. Yes, because
Correa is slow.
Oh, I see. So it's the opposite of that sounder. That's
no, it's both. Both of these are true. I'm sure this is somehow Tommy Watkins' fault.
It probably is. Joe Ryan goes 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, just 2 of them earned because of a Correa error, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. But then the bullpen was just about perfect, which against this Blue Jays lineup is an impressive feat to go 4 straight shutout innings. Stewart, Sands, Jax, Duran, combined, they just allow 1 base runner. And then this kind of surprised me. Duran came on, had the save, his 10th of the season, but that's tied for 17th in the majors. He has an ERA that's just over 1, and yet only 10 saves. I just think, I don't know, maybe that testifies to the fact that Twins have been winning games either by 7 or 8 runs, or they've been having to come from behind and score them late. It was an interesting stat. So in the end, the Twins do get the win.
Are there more saves, though? There's got to be other guys on the roster who have saves, I'm sure.
Well, it's not that many more, actually, David, because the Twins as a team only have 14 saves, which is 24th in the league. So for having 35 wins, only, 2/5 of them being saved? I guess it's made for an interesting season. Now, there's another time this season, David, that you might need a save. Now, imagine you're driving home, on your way home from work, and you realize we got nothing for dinner. What am I going to do? But you know what? You can stop at Cub. Cub has everything for you. It's your one-stop shop for all your grocery needs. It's got everyday fresh products, a wide selection. You're going to be in great shape to host the next grill out or just an emergency dinner because it's got all your backyard essentials. So grab your fresh produce, your deli meats, party trays, bakery, all in one stop. With over 100 locations in Minnesota, check out your local Cub on your next shopping trip for all your summertime essentials.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
David, I had just listened back to the end of that episode just to be sure that I really had actually picked Willie Castro, that you hadn't cut me off, or maybe in the edit, like I had somehow had the savvy to change my pick. I couldn't. I was going to pick Royce Lewis originally, but I talked myself out of it. He ends up getting the overall win here with 10 points for the team. I picked Castro, who had just the 1. Hogs took Correa with -1. You picked Buxton, who had 6, but that's a point shy of the listeners who picked Larnach, and that was an important win for the listeners because now they have 3.5 points in the season. I have 5. You have 6.5. Hogs has 9. Hogs has got to be dancing on his bicycle or whatever he's doing right now that you didn't get the win because now he still holds on to that 2.5 point lead in the season win total.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
This might be your time to talk, David, if you want to say just a few words here about the guy we just mentioned in Puckett's Picks.
Yeah, so I got to give it to Royce Lewis here. I did think it was funny listening back to the last episode that it really seemed like you were going to pick Royce Lewis. But he goes 5 for 8, 3 walks, 2 RBIs, and only 1 strikeout, which I think is the most telling stat that he's obviously seeing the ball quite a bit better. So in this moment, Dan, we're going to ask this question later, but this is the Royce we want, Dan.
He is the one.
He looked fantastic. I'm going to talk about a different guy that I don't know has made... I mean, he's been the beast before at some point, but I'm going to do this straight-faced. I'm giving it to Christian Vasquez. Couple reasons. First of all, he had the game-winning home run in Game 3, or what ended up being... It's kind of one of those things where it's like, in hockey, sometimes the game-winning goal, is officially the goal that puts you over, but it's not like it was as meaningful as later ones. But this was meaningful, right? To go after Brooksley had hit his home run. But not to mention, Vasquez had an RBI in Game 1. He had another one in Game 3. He played well behind the plate. Honestly, if Christian Vasquez has an OPS of 609 and a batting average of 210 and he's 9th in your lineup, that's okay. That's enough from Christian Vasquez.
As if you did something right.
Oh, wait. I wanted it to go to my head.
He will not. I don't think Christian Vasquez is taking any moment for granted. What about bench here, David? Who do you have?
Okay, so Game 3 bothered me because they won Game 3 a little bit, and I just don't know how you win Game 3, Dan. I'm just looking at the stats. And between Larnach, France, and Vasquez, do you want to guess how many guys those 3 guys left on base?
Oh, it's got to be about 12.
15.
Oh,
Dan.
my gosh.
So I was originally going to go with Correa because his stats look fine, but he didn't hit in the big spots. And so I'm really annoyed about that. But I think I'm going to go with basically the entire offense in Game 3 whenever there were guys on base. The team as a whole left 23 guys on base, Dan.
Wow. If you added all up the individual numbers.
Yeah, if you add up the individual totals.
So I'm going to save much of my rebuttal for later because I can't believe that this is your perspective here, given that the Twins did win this game 6-3. So I'm gonna hold that for later. For now, I'm going to put on my bench Griffin Jax for blowing Game 2. He came on in the 8th. That's his inning. Maybe he needs to go back to Rocco to kind of reset again, in the 6th or the 5th or the 4th. But I know that this is the Blue Jays, but it was a huge moment. The series kind of turned on that inning. If you consider that if the Twins can hang on to that one, they win the series. Again, close series. Tough to put anybody on the bench specifically because a lot of guys really did play well and had their moments. The starting pitching was pretty good overall, like nothing terrible. But Jax just had that big moment that he didn't step up in.
You know what they say? Fool me once, strike 1. But fool me twice, strike 3.
Is that for Rocco? Like, Rocco's not going to just let Griffin Jax talk him into...
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now. All right, let's move on here. Speaking of Rocco.
Rocco's Rewind.
I've been dying to mention this. I almost fell off whatever chair or couch I was sitting on when this happened. Game 1, bottom 8. And I hope you have the sounder ready, David, because I've been wanting it for the whole week.
Now they voted backward. Tell them to turn it around.
So Brendan Little is on the mound for the Blue Jays, and he is a left-handed pitcher, and he has some of the most reversedest of the reverse splits I think I've ever seen. I mean, his batting average against righties is like under 100, and his batting average against lefties is 255. And Rocco's got options on the bench here, and he leaves Cody Clemens in, doesn't say, turn to like a Jonah Bride or something like that. And now it doesn't go well. Clemens doesn't end up doing anything. He grounds out. But this was an evolution for Rocco to recognize that a guy could have reverse splits and that you would leave. Or it might just be that he has so much faith in Cody Clemens that he says, forget it. But this was a moment. It makes me wonder that maybe if Rocco is a listener, like he's like 2 seasons behind, you know, like he's just catching up on 23 when we really, because I was stunned at what happened here. You know, you don't think so?
You serious?
That was a long laugh there. We gotta find a way to shorten that sounder, David. That's a very long sounder. Anyway, to the rewind here. So I'm gonna introduce yours a little bit so that you have to talk less. Game 2, bottom 9th. Something about Byron Buxton?
Why didn't you give Buxton a pinch hit?
Sure. Okay. Yes.
Asking.
A fair point, because if you're going to give Byron Buxton a whole day off, and the Twins have had a history of this, right? Like if you're down, you're down. Like you're not going to play. He's done that with Correa. He's done that with Buxton before. But that is a curious thing because they certainly had him available there in the bottom of the 9th. Now, I wonder if somebody gets on base, maybe he's even going to pinch run in that situation. But they weren't able to get anybody on after the Clemens home run. You figure too, you've got Castro, Bader, and Larnach. Like I don't know who in there you'd necessarily want to pinch hit for.
Bader, no question. Bader was terrible in this series. He was like 1 for 9 or something. He could have been a bench player too, but he didn't have a big enough impact in big enough spots.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention about Rocco here was I thought it was bold to use Duran in game 2, even when behind. I liked it at the time, but it shows you why managers don't do this, right? Because if Duran's going to give up a run in the 9th anyway, can't Justin Topa do that, or Travis Adams, or somebody else? You know, so I like the boldness of it. I guess it doesn't maybe put the Twins in as bad of a spot because Monday is an off day, so maybe it won't hurt them too much. But still, you don't want to have to use your closer in a spot where he gives up a run in a non-save situation. Like that's not how you want the dominoes to fall. More things to talk about here. Let's go to the moment.
Minnesota moment.
I just think, Dan, that as we've talked about, too many guys left on base, and especially game 2, bottom 4, when Clemens hitting into a double play there, it's like, you can't do that. You got to get the ball out of the infield here. It just bothered me a lot, and to me, I'm sure he was trucking it out of the box, but my goodness, it certainly didn't look like it by the time he got to first base. Maybe he's that slow, but we've seen him run before. It was really frustrating that he couldn't.
Maybe he could have had like
first.
A kink in his left shoulder that he had to like roll it high, you know, maybe into that throwing lane, you know, just a little bit, kind of a Max Kepler, you know, pirouette that he could have been doing or something like that on his way just to get in the baseline. See, he could have. That's a good enough defense. I was just hearing music in my head, guys. Sorry, no. That was a rule change anyway. They probably wouldn't have allowed that. All right, so the Minnesota moment for me is Game 3 with all the bases loaded situations, and this is interesting on the heels of what you're just saying and all your complaints here about the Twins not doing enough with bases loaded. They did enough with the bases loaded here. They had 4 runs score with the bases loaded here. A ground out, a sac fly, and 2 walks. That's fine. You can so win. Dumb. I just recently played Catan. Like you can win Catan by just cobbling together points, right, over the course of the game here.
Oh, Dan. Oh, you are so lucky I don't have a voice right now because this bothers me to no end. That the only reason they scored runs is because the Blue Jays gave them to him.
There he is, beating that dead horse.
But you complain so frequently about the Twins not getting the runs across in these situations. They still won the game.
This doesn't count. No, okay, barely.
They won it 6-3. This was safe. Really?
No, they should have scored 15 runs in this game.
And then maybe Travis Adams can get his debut here that we're all waiting for. And they don't have to use the arms.
I don't like that you put this in your moment as a positive thing. Like they scored because the other team gave them runs.
But that's sometimes all it takes, right? In Little League,
I'm not arguing that they didn't win the game. They won the game. They got the runs, sure. But that's not how you're not going to win a lot of games that way, Dan. There's a hoping that they're going to walk you with the bases loaded.
No, I guess I would agree with that. So maybe I can spin it for you here that it was an indicative moment for how the series went because they couldn't get hits when they really, really needed them. And the Blue Jays finally just gave them enough.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'll
mollify you here, given your condition.
It's a way different way to say that than how you said it initially.
Let's go on to the Mauer's music.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
All right. I think I can mostly ask your questions here, and then I will allow you to give some kind of grunt or sounder here to reply. I think I'll start with yours here. So the question is Royce Lewis actually back? And if not, when can we say that he's actually back. He had an interview, I think it was before, between, or whatever, one of these games, where he admitted that there was kind of an adjustment period to getting back and ramped up and being able to be ready. And I do wonder if some time in AAA would have been good for him there. And I really do think that if they had anybody else available, if Luke Keeschel is available, if Jose Miranda is playing well, that somebody probably would have been up for him, and they would have maybe found a way to keep him in AAA a little bit longer, because they had him in AAA for a little while. They could have kept him there longer to kind of get ramped up. But I also think that him being around emotionally is really good for this team, playing a good third base. I think it takes the pressure off that Brooks Lee is playing pretty well at third base as well. He had an error in this series too. But so I do think ultimately we can say that he is back. Like you mentioned earlier, 5 for 8 in the series, 3 walks. I know that, Toronto was handing those things out like candy, but at the same time, I do think that he is back. Do you feel like he's back?
He looks more confident. And he looks stronger. I still am pretty convinced that the leg is still bothering him. Watch him run, and even watch him walk down the steps of the dugout. He doesn't look like a 26-year-old physical specimen. Like, he looks like my dad walking down the stairs.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Okay, this is an interesting take. So you think, just based on your untrained eye,
I don't believe that man's ever been to medical school,
that the way that Royce is walking down the dugout stairs, it says something about him. But I have months of data about Carlos Correa's swing, and it's not okay for me to say, yeah, I think his wrist is bothering him, and that injury list stint for the concussion might have helped him out. This is an unreal double standard here, David. What else do you have? Do you have any insights into Ryan Jeffers' eyesight or something like that because of that? Maybe his ear is bothering him.
Have you no joy in your life? Is there no song in your heart?
The Twins win a game, and you're unhappy. You're unhappy. You think that they didn't earn it, that they shouldn't have gotten it. This is Scrooge McDuck I'm working with here with the day after Christmas. I tell you. Actually, that would be the day before Christmas, I guess. Christmas is actually.
I'll tell you the truth. I'm a little confused by your tactics.
Anyhow, my question here, which I guess I'm going to be somewhat asking rhetorically, I didn't even finish the thought, so it's more of a topic. But with Zebby out now, too, so the Twins are down Pablo and Zebby, 2 of their starting pitchers, their ace, arguably, and then their 5th guy. Does this concern you? Maybe I can give you a number. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you? How many numbers has the scale? How many numbers has your... I'm trying to make this easier for you by offering... Like, if it was a 6 before, where is your concern now? Has it lowered or gone up?
Because I'm about to panic.
So it's gone higher then. Is that what you're saying?
I think SWR has a good chance of coming back and having a good form.
You're so happy about this. Because you thought last time that SWR should already be back in the rotation. I was knighting Zebby as to be the next ace here for this team. And now you're just feeling really smug over there.
There he is, beating that dead horse.
I think that SWR coming back, he's got to be better than he was at the beginning of the season, and I hope maybe it humbled him a little bit so he won't mock players before they hit home runs off.
Can they send Joe Ryan down too? I think he could use a little bit of humble pie as well at AAA. I hear they sell a really good one down there. I think Betty's Pies has a new place in White Bear Lake. Maybe he can go to that.
Series grades.
Tough one to grade. People will not be surprised by yours. You said there's just not enough offense, especially for Chris Paddock, so you gave them a D. I can see that. Now, the irony, well, we'll math it out. So I was trying to do the math here. Momentum, I gave him a -1 on the, again, this is the -2 to +2 pendulum scale. Because, yes, you're playing a good team, but you really could have played, if you just play a little bit better, you win the series. And I think this is a team you could potentially see in the playoffs. You could host them in the wild card again. And so it's kind of a good litmus test. I know it's early. Decision making. As far as Rocco's decisions, I thought they were pretty good. I didn't, there were some errors in the field. There was some base running that wasn't great. But I think there wasn't one decision that I can point to that really cost the Twins a game. I ended up giving them, I think, a generous +1 there. The Stars, Buxton did his part. Correa did really not do his part. I would argue he kind of hurt the team more than he helped the team. But Royce Lewis looked like Royce Lewis the Star. And so I'm going to give him a +1 here. Their mids, Castro wasn't what he had been. Harrison Bader had a bad series, as you pointed out. Larnach looked good. So there was a lot of balancing here in those middle row guys, so I gave him a 0. And then the youth, Brooks Lee had the home run, but they didn't, the news about Zebby being hurt is a little bit troubling. And then also, I don't know, I just didn't feel like a lot of the young guys stepped up. I gave him a -1. So you add up all those numbers, 2 + 4 + 4 is 10, +3 + 2 is 15, multiply it by 4, and that's actually a 60, which is a D minus. My eye test would have given them a higher score than a D, but in the end, I think there were a lot of things that just didn't go quite right for the Twins here. So a D minus, a barely passing grade. Well, David, I'm talking about this team really not even passing the smell test. If you're not passing the smell test, I got a product for you. Duke Cannon makes high-quality grooming products for hard-working, smelly men. Minnesota-based and with an all-new look, their clean new packaging featuring a big D is unmistakable on the shelves. Whether you go for a brick of soap, thick body wash, deodorant, hair care, beard care, or cologne, Duke Cannon will have you smelling your best. Look for the big D at Target, Walmart, Amazon, or DukeCannon.com. Once you try it, you'll be hooked. Work harder, smell better, Duke Cannon.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's Headlines.
So I think, David, I'm going to have to make you talk a little bit about this one. This is your note. I did want to say one thing, though, before. A listener Adam pointed out to me that when we talked about last episode, the Diamondbacks comeback over the Braves pitcher in that game during that comeback, Scott Blewett. Couldn't ask for a better situation here. I believe he got cut afterwards. So Scott Blewett really did blow it.
It's like a pun. It's a play on words.
I do get it.
So Corbin Burns, real quick note, is going to have Tommy John like we thought he would. He's in year 1 of his 6-year, $210 million contract with the D-backs. And then I just thought this was funny. There's a guy who this spring has basically just been robbing the homes of sports stars across Seattle. So he's hit the homes of Luis Castillo, Julio Rodriguez, Richard Sherman, and Blake Snell. He's gotten away with I guess he hasn't gotten away anymore. He got caught. But he stole more than $300,000 worth of like jewelry and merchandise.
That's crazy. First of all, I've forgotten that Blake Snell was actually from Seattle. It's kind of like a Robin Hood moment, I suppose, but I don't think anybody's rooting for Robin Hood in this situation here.
No, and the only reason why I even brought this up is because all I wanted to say is I just really hope this is a Seattle fan who's annoyed at the lack of success of the Seattle franchise.
And so he thinks maybe if he robs them, then that will make them play a little bit harder and be more successful.
Yes.
That's funny. All right, well, let's look forward here to this Rangers series that starts on Tuesday.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's Picks.
All right. So, again, Texas Rangers come to town. This should be a good series. They pitch really well. The bats will need to be better. So, speaking of those bats here, the listeners are going to go first, as always, and they have faith. They are going to take Royce Lewis. After that, then comes Hogs, who picks Buxton. And then I guess it's me next, right? I guess given all of these choices, you know what? I'm going to go for Matt Wallner. I think he can hit a couple home runs here. That's where my faith is. And then do you want to just type in your answer, David, and then I can read it out loud? Great. And then, David, you are picking Harrison Bader. That's an interesting choice. Oh, sorry, that's wrong cell. He's actually picking Trevor Larnach. It would be great though if Harrison Bader comes out and has a great series. So that's it for us here. We've got an interesting schedule coming up here. I'm gonna be doing a little bit of traveling. I know David's wife is gonna be doing a little bit of traveling, so he's gonna be doing some solo parenting. So hopefully your voice comes back in time, David, for you to be able to wrangle your children, you know, when they make just casual mistakes like this.
Kiss the cows.
So let's just hope you're feeling in good shape. I think it's pretty safe to say that I will send us out. Folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.